Hello Vivian, welcome to the third channel. Welcome to 2022. I was thinking the entire time 2021, but no, that was a year away. Oh, a year gone actually. But so today is our first interview of 2022. Now, last year, on the 31st December 2021, I made a video on Tom Mason, the main channel, where I compiled everyone saying hello or whatever he said, hello or thank you or wow. It was like the greatest video. I've seen it 44 times. I'm the one that did all the views on it. And we will be doing that again this year. Now, to kick off the interviews today, we have a very special guest. He's best known, right, get this. He's best known for Rosie and Jim. I don't know how I can mess that up, but Rosie and Jim, it's the one, it's the only Robin Stevens.
Hello, Tom. My name is Tom, and what's your name then? Is it oh yeah, it's Tom.
Wow. So before we get on to the main point, the most exciting point of all, Rosie and Jim, we'll go back to the beginning. How did you actually get into the industry of puppeteering?
Well, hello, Tom. Yeah, my name is Robin Stevens. I am a professional puppeteer. I have been for quite a few years. When I was 6, my parents did a puppet show for me at my birthday parties. And oh, by the way, I live in the United States now, so I apologize if I sound slightly American. But anyway, yeah, when I was 6, my parents used to do a puppet show for me on my birthdays, and that kind of got me interested in puppetry. And then I also saw the movie The Sound of Music that has a whole puppet sequence in that. And that got me kind of very interested in making my own puppet theater. So yeah, when I was a teenager, well, when I was 12 or something, I built my own marionette theater, and I used to do puppet shows for the local neighborhood kids, and people would come around to my house and watch puppet shows. And then I wanted to be an actor when I left school, but yeah. Then I also had this idea that I also wanted to maybe continue my puppeteering. And so I wrote to all the puppet theaters in England, the big ones, and I heard back from one of them, which was called Cannon Hill Puppet Theater in Birmingham, Cannon Hill Park. And this guy, John Blundell, wrote to me and said, well, we can't offer you anything, but you could come and see me and say, see what's going on here. Anyway, I ended up 4 years later as his apprentice. For 4 years, I was an apprentice at that puppet theater. I learned the whole craft of being a puppeteer from John Blundell at Cannon Hill. And I was part of the cast there. But I also was a stage manager, and in the evenings, I would make puppets and I would learn how to make scenery. And I had the whole apprenticeship type of training, which I recommend, actually, learning from, professional puppet theater, how to be a puppeteer. And then after that, I did a one-man show for a year, and I worked with children with autism, I worked with handicapped kids for a year. And then after that, I started doing puppetry on TV. I worked for the BBC for a while. I did shows like Wiz, which I think was my first show. And I did an audition for Anne Wood, she was head of children's TV at TVAM at the time. I don't know if anyone of you remember Roland Rat, but anyway, she was the head of TV that was running. And so I did an audition in the corridor for her with 6 little puppet skits, and she invited me onto a show called Rubber Dub Dub. That was actually my very first TV, I think, when I operated this little puppet called Rolly on TV on TVM many, many years ago. And then, then I worked for BBC for quite a while. I did Wiz, and I did Lay on 5 with Floella Benjamin. And I had an idea for a show which answered kids' questions. So we did, which turned into a show called Corners, and I was Joe Corner on that show. And but yeah, so Anne Wood really was my main mentor though in TV, and she invited me after I'd auditioned for her at TVAM to when she left TVAM to start Ragdoll Productions. She invited me to come and work for her, and the very first show I did for her was called Pob, P-O-B.
And speaking of corners, one of, I think, I would say quite famous, she's famous in London. But what was it like working with Sophie Aldred on it? Now that she's become famous in time and space.
Yeah, it was funny actually because I was working with Sophie while she was working on Doctor Who, and she became the character Ace. I think she wore a leather jacket and was famous for blowing things up, if I remember rightly. But she used to get all these letters from Doctor Who fans, and I remember laughing with her because they would ask her, they wouldn't write to her as if she was Sophie Aldred. They would write to her as Ace, and and find out what it was like to be Ace, and so she had to write back as Ace, as if she really lived a life of Ace, even off screen, she was still being Ace. So that was kind of interesting to see. Yeah, but
Wow.
yeah, she became, she went from just being a presenter on BBC Children's to being quite well known around the world.
And now she's mega famous, and she's wrote her own book. So I think writing fan letters as Ace helped her to write the book later down the line.
Yeah, it's funny working at the BBC because in the lift, you might bump into Red Dwarf or whoever, and the trouble is I don't know anybody. I don't think I'd recognize the Queen if I met her, so everyone would laugh at me because I didn't know who anyone was, and everyone was impressed by seeing who was in the canteen that day, and I actually wasn't because I don't recognize anybody.
Wow. I can't imagine the Queen in a lift. You can imagine her doing almost anything else, but not in a lift.
Yeah, I think it's fairly unlikely you would bump into the Queen in a lift. It's true.
Unless she was auditioning for Doctor Who.
That's true. That's true.
Oh, I can just imagine that now. Now, swiftly moving away from the Queen. Now, one of the shows that you've done that sort of isn't really as popular as it should be, because when you watch it, you sort of think to yourself, what on earth am I watching? Because it's so weird. But what was it like working on Boo Bars? Now, I remember that really fondly. And I remember it being really weird. What was it like working on that?
Yeah, Boo Bar was a bizarre show for sure. I mean, Boo Bar actually started with some experiments I did. We were trying to figure out what to do after Teletubbies. It was such a huge success, and we were trying to figure out what the next show would be at Ragdoll. And I did these experiments with children where they would be in one room and we would be in another room. They had a whole set of props, and we had a whole set of props, and the same ones. And we were basically experimenting with how interactive TV could work.
Yeah.
And so they were like, if they blew a horn, we had a horn in our area and we would fall over or something. And anyway, what we discovered was that kids love to be in control of adults.
Yeah.
Because you know how it is when you're a kid and adults tell you what to do all day long and make you wear coats and go to school and do all the things that they want you to do. But so anyway, for a child, it's quite fun to be in control of an adult, and especially making them fall over. So Boo Bar kind of came from that experiment we did where, I was Grandpapa in Boo Bar. I was Grandpapa in that show, and we had the whole cast of different, family characters. We filmed all that in Spain, by the way. Story World was in in the Costa del Sol, which was a very hard job for me, Tom. I had to go and live in Spain for a couple of years and film on the beach in Costa del Sol. But anyway, that was the idea behind Boo Bar, was that the characters actually were going to be more like I've forgotten what that software is called now, where you can actually control the picture with something you have in your hand. It was going to be like, what's that the computer game called? Anyway, the Boo Bar the character, the Boo Bars were going to be like a control that you had in your hand, and you could press the head down as more like a mouse or something.
Oh yeah.
Boo Bar was going to be that, but like an interactive TV show, but it never actually turned into that. It just was this show where these strange little characters danced around, and we were the story people. I had a great time working with all those lovely. There was one wonderful meal where we were sitting down in a restaurant in Spain, and this person came up to us, and was trying to figure out who we all were, because she said we looked like NATO. We were all different. We were carefully chosen to be all different colors and ages and everything. So they thought maybe we were some kind of NATO conference or something.
Well, Boo Bars is one of those programs that when you YouTube it, apart from someone uploading full episodes, you very rarely hear about it. And Boo Bars, to me, was one of my favourites as a small child. So much, I accidentally put the wrong VHS into the wrong box. And when I wanted to watch Tweenies, I ended up watching Boo Bars instead. That's how I enjoyed it, which says something for me, because the Tweenies wasn't that normal either. But with Ragdoll Productions, like, how did that all begin? Where did that come from, Ragdoll?
Oh, Ragdoll. Well, Ragdoll is basically Anne Wood. She is an amazing lady who wants to make the best children she possibly could, the best television for children she possibly could. And she started off doing a show about books called Book Tower many years ago, and then she went to TVAM and became the head of TVAM Children's. And as I said, she was behind Roland Rat, but she was also behind the show Rubber Dub Dub. You're probably way too young to remember that, but it was in the 80s probably. But that show, she was experimenting with how to make the best children's TV she could, and then when she left TVAM, which was the first morning TV in England, believe it or not. Before that, there had never been any morning TV in England, amazingly.
Yeah.
It all started at lunchtime or something, amazingly. But anyway, and they were struggling. So Roland Rat was known as the rat that actually saved the sinking ship, which was TVAM. But yeah, she started Ragdoll pretty much as a result of not working at TVAM anymore. And we already knew each other, and she knew the director, Doug Wilcox, and Bob Burke was her designer at TVM. And so those and actually Sue James joined us very soon, but those were the founding members actually of Ragdoll. And yeah, she just wanted to have a company that could make the best TV she could for children, and that was the motto of Ragdoll, was Ragdoll works for children. So we were just always, and she actually had a testing department where she would send people out with a video to film children watching our shows just to make sure they liked it. And if the children didn't laugh at one of my shows I had made, then she didn't show it. She would throw it in the rubbish bin. So it was it was great, because it was all about what worked for children, and that's always what I wanted to do as well. I always wanted to make children's TV that would work, that children would really enjoy, and also that we had this word enfolding, that we tried to make shows that would make children feel like almost like they were having a big hug or something, that felt like they were being kind of looked after, or the characters were more loving to each other, so we wanted to make enfolding TV shows that were kind of about, well, I wanted to make shows that were about love, basically, which is a pretty weird idea nowadays.
Yeah, and with with some of the most popular ones that are now, well, I wouldn't say some of the most popular ones, because some of the ones that are popular aren't available in streaming wars, but Tots TV is now available on BritBox, so anyone that wants to relive Tots TV can. Now,
Excellent.
What happened to the set after the program finished airing? What happened to the set? What did you do with it?
So we were based in Stratford-on-Avon. That's where Stratford was based. That's where Ragdoll was based. I mean, in Stratford, and we were looking for a place to make Tots TV. We wanted a small little woodland that no one could see from the road, and eventually we found this nice farmer. I forgot what his name was, but he very kindly let us use a bit of his a bit of woodland in the middle of a field to build the Tots house, and that's where we filmed for many years, like 6 years. And also after we were, while we were still filming Tots TV, they decided to make Teletubbies, and they built the whole Teletubby site in the same on the same farm in a field next next to the Tots house. So this poor farmer had all these TV people, on his farm. But so anyway, many years later, when we finished filming Teletubbies, we made that whole site back into a lake.
Yeah.
We didn't fill in the hole that was actually the house the Teletubby house was in, but the farmer wanted his field back, so we made it into a lake and got rid of everything. But because the Tots house was hidden away, I don't think he was so bothered about us getting rid of that, so we left it there. And of course, lots of people like yourselves many years later found it, and so I think he had lots of people coming through his yard and finding the Tots house in his field. But I think it was bothering the farmers, so eventually he burned it down. Many years later, which I understand, because you don't really want lots of people on your land traipsing at night or whatever, bothering you at Sunday lunch.
No, you don't want to be in your. You just see like a pack of people with cameras all just walking through. Oh, there we go.
Well, that's right, because it's actually on his farm. It's it's not like it's on public land or anything. It's in his backyard. So.
And with Teletubbies still knocking about, where is it filmed now? If you know where it's, because it's still knocking about.
Yeah, when we made Teletubbies, we actually built something which was pretty similar to a golf course. Really, I mean, it was a huge site. The only way you could make, the guy who's playing Tinky Winky, he was a 6-foot man with a 2-foot mask on his head. So that is an 8-foot Teletubby right there. So the only way you can make that look small and cute is to put him in a very, very big location, right? So anyway, so we built this huge golf course type location just to make the Teletubbies look small. And well, yeah, so as I say, we actually gave that land back to the farmer whose land it was. So I guess the owner, because Ragdoll sold the rights to Teletubbies, so it's someone else making the new show, and I would imagine they must be making it all in computer graphic world. They will be in a studio probably against a green background, against a blue or green background or whatever. I don't know which color actually, because there's a Teletubby that's purple and there's a Teletubby that's green. Anyway, they'll have a plain background and they're probably shooting on in a studio, I suspect, and then building the whole thing in computer graphics.
Because if it was a green screen, you'd be missing a Teletubby. You'd be missing.
That's right. Yeah, when you're filming with,
It'll blend in.
That's right. Yeah, when you're filming keying something, you have to choose a color and then not have that in your set. So actually Bob had blue circles around his eyes, and quite often you could see actually through his eyes to the back of the set. So I had to repaint those eventually.
Teletubbies is one of those programs where the theme tune became really popular. It seems the theme tune, that and Bob the Builder, was some of the most popular. Did you ever expect the Teletubbies theme tune to be as popular as it was?
Yeah, it's funny because ever since I started working with Anne Wood, she had this idea called Teletubbies in her mind, and she used to draw four different lines. They were different heights, and she'd always wanted to make that show, Teletubbies, and I guess eventually it turned into Teletubbies. So it was something she had always wanted to do. I don't know if any of us expected what happened with Teletubbies to happen. I mean, it was quite a shock. We were small, it was literally when Anne started the company. I was literally meeting her at her house, at her kitchen table, and then she had a small office in Birmingham. But after Teletubbies, we turned into this huge company. So it was a bit of a shock for all of us because we went from being a small little company that made Rosie and Jim and Tots TV to being this huge company that made Teletubbies, and we had a New York office and things like that.
Wow. Now, moving away from Teletubbies, because we'll be here all day otherwise, because Teletubbies is one of the just one of the most famous British kids shows, I think, of one of my generation. I don't know. I don't talk to enough people.
I think you're right.
Yeah. I might be right. I don't talk to enough people in my own age. Because I'm like an 80-year-old inside. Now, with Rosie and Jim, because it was fantastic, and I still remember the theme tune very much, and remember it without looking at images. I remember it very well because it was amazing. Was the canal boat, let's call it, was the canal boat an actual canal boat, or was it just a set? Was it actually like a fully working canal boat?
That's what I liked about Ragdoll shows is everything's real. You know, we when we make a house in the woods for Tots TV, it's an actual house that really was there, and the boat was an actual boat that was built. Actually, it was built for another show called Story Time, which was I don't know if many people have heard of that now, but anyway, Ragdoll had owned this boat called the Ragdoll, and she had this puppeteer she liked working with called Robin Stevens, and we can combine the two things. And John Cunliffe, who was the writer of Postman Pat, he was the first guy that lived on the boat. So we combined those elements and created this show called Rosie and Jim. But yes, it was a real boat, and we had a support boat behind us. So we traveled for 11 years all over the different canals of the whole of England.
Wow.
And we had a support boat that had a toilet and a place to eat and everything. We had a whole flotilla of, and then we also had another smaller boat that had a generator on it. That's because we obviously had lights on, big old lights for filming while we were traveling along. So it was a floating studio, but it was an actual boat.
Wow. That's really incredible. That you just wouldn't expect. Well, you sort of when you watch it, you would hope that it would actually be moved. But for the puppeteers that were for how it was shot, was the floor quite big? Was there enough room? Because canal boats to me are quite small, and you would need a lot of room to fit people underneath to operate the Rosie and the Jim.
They're called narrow boats, those boats, and they are very narrow because they have to fit into a lock, So no, it was tiny. I mean, Rebecca Nagan and Rebecca, who plays Rosie, we used to fit into tiny little spaces. When you see Rosie and Jim sitting on the sofa on the boat, we're actually, if you look carefully, there's a black cloth over our bodies because we're lying on a black floor. Inside that couch, basically. But when Neil walks through the door and to the table, he has to step over our bodies because we're lying right there. There was nowhere for us to go, and sometimes it wasn't because if you just want one arm working and the head working, then this would be Jim's head and this would be his hand. But if you want his other hand to work, then you have to get someone else in to do that. So sometimes there's four of you all lying in very, very small, tight conditions to try and get them all working at the same time.
Well, luckily none of you had claustrophobia because that would have been a nightmare.
Rebecca and I used to hide lots of chocolates and things in there because we had a little shelf where we kept all our chocolate because quite often they would go off and have a tea break and forget we were there. So
now with all of this, so with your career being so wide and so popular as it is, as a child, what TV show stood out to you to inspire you to do this career?
Yeah, I mean, actually, I think my favorite TV show when I was a kid was Blue Peter, which didn't really have puppets. Yeah, like I said, I think the main thing that inspired me puppet-wise as a kid was The Sound of Music, because they have that little character going yodelay, 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 and so that's kind of what got me into puppetry. Apart from the fact my parents did shows and my brothers did shows for me when I was little. Which TV shows did I really like? I'm trying to think. I used to like Wacky Races, and yeah, I can't really remember many TV shows when I was a kid.
Yeah, Blue Peter's another popular TV show that has had a range of puppets appear on it over the years.
That's true. It did, yeah.
And most recently, Hacker T-Dog, who has been knocking about for 12 years, which is quite bizarre because he was on when I was young. I never expected. Time flies, it seems.
what was kind of amazing when I started working at the BBC was I got to see the Blue Peter Garden that I'd seen as a child, and then I actually ended up working on play, play school, which the very last few play schools I was did some puppets on those, and I met the play days people and so forth. So it was strange, being in the studios that I had seen as a child and seeing the Blue Peter Garden where they buried a time capsule to dig up in the year 2000 and things like that. It's kind of amazing to actually suddenly be in the place you've seen as a
Yeah.
child.
Yeah, and it's one of those things, and play school's quite popular as well. It's still popular now, funnily enough, because New Zealand and Australia have their own versions of play school.
Wow.
And,
Oh my
and
goodness.
play school in Australia has been going for 55 years, and the New Zealand one ended, and so they now broadcast the so it's like so it's basically just on every day. And when you turn on Australian TV, you're watching Play School, and it's the same theme tune around the world, which is quite shocking when you think about it, because it's so popular. I don't know why I don't know why it ended in the UK, because it's.
I didn't know. I didn't. Well, it's something to do with privatization because the BBC decided that a lot of their shows had to be made by private little companies rather than all of them in house. So that's how Playdays started. It's because Cynthia Felgate, who was head of the play school at the time, she left to start her own company and started doing was it called Play Bus, right?
Yeah.
Play Bus, or anyway, I made the Y Bird for her for that show. So
Wow. Now with the era that we're in, where TV comes back again and again and again, no matter how many times you want to bring back the same shows, whether or not they bring them back in a good way or a bad way, do you think, or do you want Rosie and Jim and Tots TV to return to our televisual screens?
wow, yeah, it's a difficult one, that because sometimes I think when you make a copy of something, it's never as good as it was the first time. I know some sequels are as good or better, but I think everything has its time, and I think it's better to always move forward and make the next thing rather than try and drag old things back up. Because I think that everything has its time, and uh, yeah, but it's funny because they found the Rosie and Jim boat, and I think the people that own it have been renovating it to make it look like the Rosie and Jim boat again, the Ragdoll. So, the I'm on a website, with all the people that used to make Rosie and Jim, and we were laughing about it would be fun to do a Red Nose Day, sequel with just one show, Rosie and Jim years later, but I don't know if it will ever happen.
Well, I think what would be funny is if they did an adult version of Rosie and Jim, just like one off, where it's all adult. It's all the kids that grew up watching it are probably now adults now. But it'd be really funny if they had gone from being like just for children, and now just really weird, and now just be really funny.
I don't know. Do rag dolls grow up? This is the question, Tom.
Well, they might stay small. They just might have a different attitude. They might be
Right.
fed up of being left in a box for so many years.
Well, we'd have to have long writing meetings to get the script right for sure.
Yeah. Jim's now an alcoholic.
This is actually the original. I carved this duck behind me up here. That's
Wow.
actually the original duck, Rosie and Jim duck there, which I carved. Yeah.
And so with Ragdoll Productions, now I might have got this information wrong because I haven't found any information. I just assumed. Is Ragdoll Productions still a working company?
I believe it is. Yeah. Anne is still around, and her son Chris Wood took it over, and I think they make great TV shows. Yeah. I think they don't make so many puppet shows anymore. I think it's more animation type stuff, but yeah.
And so not only did you work solely in the British Sophia, as in circle, not as in the name Sophia. I made that mistake once. And you've also branched out into working on the Labyrinth. What was that like?
Working on Labyrinth, yeah. You know, at Ragdoll, I used to write the scripts, and you know, Tots TV and Rosie and Jim and so forth were, you know, they were very much. I put a lot of input into them. I wrote the scripts, and they were, you know, Tots TV was my idea and so forth. But um, you know, when I worked on Labyrinth, the movie with David Bowie, it was quite a shock to be a very small cog in a huge wheel. You know, that a very small fish in a big pond. It was amazing to see, because that was one of the very last big puppet movies before before CG took over. So it was amazing to see puppets, you know, ruling the roost like that, and so many puppeteers all in one place. It was such a funny place to work, because you know you had all the funny looking puppeteer people, and there's just a bunch of very interesting people, you know, working on different things, and people working on those amazing mechanics for all those different puppets, making them all work was amazing to see. So it was a great experience, but I preferred actually working on shows that were my own ideas and so forth. Yeah.
Did you ever get to meet David Bowie, or was he too busy? Did you?
If you if you actually watch the movie about how Labyrinth was made, there's one sequence where they film up, and I'm actually operating a marionette, and I'm pretty much right above David Bowie's head. So I think my claim to fame is that I dripped sweat on him, because those lights were so. No, he would actually arrive in his car. The car would drive into the studio, if I remember, and jump out. He would do his scene, and then he would drive away again the moment the scene was shot. So we would rehearse all day, and then he would just come in and do his thing and leave.
Yeah, because he's mainly he was mainly a musician, and he was a very good actor. I wouldn't say he's an Oscar. Well, I mean, the film was Oscar award worthy, but I think he was a good actor, and he would have been really really good if he was on or one of the Teletubbies. It just would be funny, David Bowie being Tinky Winky.
I can see that.
Yeah, and with you working on a Jim Henson production, that's quite popular within the UK puppet world these days, because Warwick Bindle Pike and Phil Fletcher have all worked, as well as working with the BBC, have also done helping with the Jim Henson Company. Now, were you a big, because Warwick and Phil put together are massive fans of Jim Henson, were you also one of those Jim Henson, massive Jim Henson fans, and saw every Jim Henson production possible?
I think the Hensons make incredible. Yeah, I mean they changed the face of puppetry, really, especially on television. You know, they started making their films in England because they couldn't find anyone that would actually pay to make the Muppet movies over. You know, they made Sesame Street in America, but they couldn't find anyone that was willing to fund the Muppet shows. So that's why they came to England, and that's why there were so many puppet jobs in England, because a lot of the Muppet movies were being made in England, and that's where the Creature Shop was. But no, actually, we used to work hard at Ragdoll to try and make our puppets as less like the Muppets as possible, because we wanted to have an English style of puppetry that was different from the Muppets. So it wasn't that we didn't like the Muppets, but every time we auditioned puppeteers, they would all do this very kind of Muppety thing, and which is great. I mean, I have nothing against it, but we just wanted to have a slightly different style, a slightly slower, more English style, I guess, of puppetry. So I would generally teach all the puppeteers we had how to do our style.
Yeah, because in my era, I should say, Jim Henson was quite popular. It's so popular enough that we even had our own Sesame Street-esque type program with Furchester Hotel, with having Cookie Monster and Elmo, and then everyone else come over here. And out of the modern stint of puppet shows, what program would you watch when it's on? Like, what modern puppet show would you now sit down, and if it's on TV, watch it?
Yeah, what puppet movies do I watch these days? You know, I don't really watch any puppet shows right now on TV. I mean, I've got grandchildren, and they sit down and watch children's TV, but it's all very floaty kind of CG animation. What I really liked about what we did was we were showing children the real world,
Yeah.
and it doesn't seem like anything's showing children the real world anymore. It's more just kind of lost in this floaty CG universe, and so and also a lot of TV seems to have got very cynical, you know. So um, yeah, I yeah, I don't really know which puppet shows I watch anymore, Tom.
Well, for the viewers out there that are watching this, I'll briefly give a recommendation. I wouldn't be able to tell you what it's called, because it's got a, but I don't know. Warwick Bindle Pike, who's best known for playing Dodge T Dog on Series C, made a program for BBC Alaba, and I think it's called Mora is Morgue or something. And it's where there's this massive this massive bull and this mini two can talk to each other in Scottish Gaelic,
Wow,
and you learn how to say like square, and
nice.
it's an educational show where Warwick, it's interesting for two reasons. One, because it's made by a British puppeteer, and two, because I think he's voicing the characters. I might be wrong in that, but I think he might be voicing one of the characters, and it's interesting to learn that he knows more than one language, which, from my point of view, I never knew.
I've got one. Have you seen a show called Don't Hug Me, I'm Scared? I think it's called.
I think I've seen one of them on YouTube.
Yeah, that's a very clever show. I think it might have been a Channel 4 show or something, but it's yeah, it's very clever. It's not actually for children, but it's very it's a very clever idea and very well done, I think.
Now, with your career being so vast and wide and that we can't cover everything or else we'll be here for 4 million years, what is the best thing, in your opinion, what's the best thing you've worked on, in your opinion?
I have to say Rosie and Jim, I think, just because you know, we did that for 11 years, and I used to write all the scripts, and it was very much an expression of who I am, I think. And the team was, you know, it was pretty much the same team of people, with Derek the cameraman, and Rebecca and Penny Lane, and we just had this whole, and Bob Burke the designer. I could go on. Anyway, there was a whole bunch of the team that was worked together for years. Nigel Harris, and we were just a very tight team, and it just felt, and it was just a lovely place to work as well, floating along on this boat down all the different canals in England, and it was just a great job, you know. And it was just and we used to see lots of children wave to us and sing the song as we went past, and it's just nice to feel like you're reaching out with something that was wholesome, and it felt a good show to make. Yeah.
Well, for viewers that might be younger than me, because this is a family-friendly entertainment for everyone YouTube channel, I did just Google it now, so I had the information in front of me. You can now watch full episodes of Rosie and Jim on the Wild Brain Kids YouTube channel, which will be linked in the description. I would recommend you watching them because they are incredible. I do want to point out that the puppets are not scary. They might look scary, but they're not scary. So do watch it, even if one of the thumbnails staring at me does look a little bit evil, because we've got Jim staring directly into the camera. But trust me, it's a very friendly and cozy show. It feels like a warm hug, a warm cotton felt hug. What were Rosie Jim made out of?
Cloth. Well, the actual framework was, the heads were made out of latex rubber, you know, so we could bend them a little bit. But then they were covered in toweling. The face were covered in, and then their costumes were made out of cloth. And we made Jim's costume look a little like the costumes that the clothes that people would wear in the old days, when the canal boats were more like lorries, you know, and they would carry all the heavy stuff around England, and there were people lived on those boats, and they wore things a little bit like what Jim was wearing. And then Rosie was called Rosie because they have beautiful paintings of roses and castles on the back of the boats to make them look a little more, you know, because the same way that truck drivers these days decorate their lorries a little bit, they decorated the backs of the boats with these roses and castles. And anyway, that's why Rosie was called Rosie. So.
Now, because now you left the shores of Britain and now you live in the United States. I don't know what I was going to say there, but was or is Rosie and Jim well known in America, or did that never make the jump across the pond?
Tots, no, Rosie and Jim's not known here at all, I don't think. And Tots TV was shown on PBS, but they revoiced it. It wasn't quite the same show here. You know, it had American actors doing the voices, so it lost. They didn't think they would understand us, but I think American children would have understood us okay. And then, but Teletubbies was very well known here. It's extremely well known. So
yeah, because I think they call it something else. I think they call it like Teletubbies. It's pronounced a little bit different. I think.
Oh, maybe I haven't really. Yeah, I think they call it.
I think I remember someone saying it was. I saw some video where it was like pronounced like slightly different. It just seemed a little bit off to me.
The funny thing about living in America is, you know, we assume that everyone speaks the same out here, but it's a very, very big country, and there's lots and lots of different accents. And I didn't really realize that till I got here. So, you know, people on one coast speak completely differently to the people on the other coast, and people in the middle speak very differently. So
now, what's your like goal for the future for your career? Where would you see yourself in the future?
Yeah, well, it's interesting. Yeah, I've taken a break from making television and writing scripts and things just because I got a little burned out because I did it for 30 years solidly. And so I've been doing something else for a little while, but I'm actually ready to start making some more stuff now. So I'm actually working on some ideas to launch some new shows more on the internet than on the television. So watch this space.
Wow, that sounds very exciting because TV these days it's all over the shop at the moment. Is TVs. You don't know what works, what doesn't work, and you've got like streaming and stuff. So that would be really interesting because of where Rosie and Jim had its original aim. Now because we've got a new audience, it'd be interesting to see what it's like, what the writers of Rosie and Jim make in the modern era.
Right.
What is so with do you think TV will still be around as it is right now in 10 years time?
Well, you know, TVs are, I mean, you know, watching screens will definitely be around, but TV, you know, when I was young, we used to have 4 channels and that was it. And if you couldn't get your show onto one of those 4 channels, you were done. We used to joke, wouldn't it be nice to have a big old aerial where we could just broadcast ourselves without having to get onto a TV station? And now, of course, you can sit in your wherever you are and broadcast to the world. So that's amazing, really. That's changed completely. So I see it going more that direction. You know, I never watch TV at all anymore. I just watch stream channels on you know, online. So I think a lot of people, I think TV as we used to know it, which, you know, the broadcast version, I don't know if that will survive. And the trouble, of course, with that whole model is that there's no money left to fund anything. So, you know, you can't get money to make your show, I don't suppose, and it's very hard for anyone to get money to make small shows. And there is, as the whole thing gets more and more spread out and more dispersed, it's great for people because they can do their own thing, but there's less and less money to make anything really good. That's the trouble.
Well, yeah, well, I just hope TV stays as it is because I'm probably one of the only few that watches programs when they broadcast. I'm probably like, because a lot of people my age go out partying and do all sorts, and I'm sat inside untangling string watching Live at the Apollo. I mean, I live in a different world to anyone else my age because, as my parents like to say, I might look young, but on the inside I'm like an 80-year-old. I know more about anything else previous than my own. I sit in a classroom and you try and listen to all the other other kids in your class, and I have no clue what they're saying at all. They're speaking a different language.
Well, Tom, I think the world needs lots of different kinds. I think what happens with the media is it makes everyone all the same. And with social media is trying to make everyone feel like they're not right unless they're this shape or this whatever. And I think you should enjoy being exactly who you are, and don't let anyone tell you shouldn't be. I mean, everyone said, "How are you going to possibly make a living as a puppeteer? You need to go and be a lawyer or something." And I said, "Well, I'll show you." And I did make a living as a puppeteer. So if I could do that, you can do anything, right?
Yeah, and now it's a massive career. And now it's like a big job that a lot of people are doing, and it's quite successful because Sesame Street's still knocking about, and when you turn on CBBC, the BBC is still pushing money into puppets.
Yeah.
Hacker, and then new ones for their brand new Saturday morning TV shows, Saturday Mashup, which, in my opinion, is a little bit iffy. It's not as it used to be. It's all changed, and they added the reboot of Danger Mouse onto it, and it's no, I don't know, it doesn't work as well without David Jason. But if you were going to do Rosie and Jim now, just hypothetically,
Yeah.
what would you have? What would you change about it?
Well, the thing about bringing something back like that is I think that's the last thing you want to do is change anything, really. I mean, for 11 years, we kept everything kind of similar. I think we got more fun with it because the presenter, Neil was willing to do a lot more fun things than John was, for instance. So, we started to do much more interesting things for us, like, go water skiing or, go up the Big Ben Tower or whatever. We were doing crazy things and more fun for us. So I think it would probably go that direction where it would be a lot of fun. But I don't think you should. If you have a format, you should. The whole point is to stay within it.
Yeah.
And enjoy the disciplines of it. I broke everything on the boat and I fixed it again, and I lost everything on the boat because all I had was 2 ragdolls, a duck, and someone living on the boat, and and it's hard to find different stories. I wrote over 300 Rosie and Jims, and
Wow.
and we wrote, I've forgotten how many Tots TVs, but I mean, one year we had to write 100 of those in 1 year. So anyway, when you're having to write that many things, you're having to think up ideas. So, but it's fun to stay. It's fun to stay within the bounds of that particular format.
So because you've wrote all these written, I'll use the correct term, written all these kids shows. From your opinion and from your knowledge, what's the key formula to make a successful kids show?
Well, at Ragdoll, and I think they still have the same philosophy, is it's, you start with a child. So, what does a child actually want to see? And also a child right now, not your idea about what a child was when you were a kid, but, children are different now. They've grown up with phones and, it's a different world they live in. So we used to start with that. It's like, what do you think? Well, we go and find out. We would actually go and film them and work with them. We'd find out what children really enjoy, and then make some. And also, when I'm performing, I don't make something for thousands of children. I'm thinking about 1 or 2 children sitting on a sofa, and I'm just thinking about them when I'm performing. So I'm thinking about an actual child, not what I think is funny, but when I perform, I'm thinking about the actual child that is sitting there watching it. So, which might have been you, I guess, at one point.
Yeah, because I was a small child watching Rosie and Jim and
Wow.
many other shows that I don't know how they got made, because a lot of,
I know, right?
a lot of kids shows are when you rethink about them, they do seem weird, such as Tweenies. That's I wouldn't, that would just scare me now, looking at a big dog just like coming pounding by, and it's actually a bloke in a dog costume. That would just spook me. Yeah. And so coming towards the end of this fantastic interview, if you could give advice to anyone out there that could either want to be a TV writer for children's shows or want to be a puppeteer, what advice would you give them to be their dream job?
Well, number one is, just believe in yourself. Don't, if you've got something to give to the world, don't do it because other people tell you that it's impossible. Luckily, I had supportive parents that supported me in going and training to be a puppeteer, but some people don't have support. But anyway, believe in yourself, number one, and what you have to give. And then number two is, you have to work really hard, especially if you want to do something different. You probably have to work harder than other people. So, turn up on time, always say yes to everything anyone offers you. People would offer me things and I'd have no idea how I was going to do it, but you just say yes and then go home and worry about it and make it happen, right? And always deliver. So, Bob Burke, our designer, he's quite a famous designer. He used to do, he designed the whole of Teletubby site, but he also used to do Monty Python and a whole bunch of BBC things. But anyway, he would say that the main thing he was looking for in his design assistants was 8 o'clock, because if you're not there at 8 o'clock in the morning when you say you're going to be, you might be the first week or the second week, but there's so many people say they want to do something, but they don't work hard enough. They don't turn up and they don't put themselves totally into something, and if you really want to succeed in TV or anything, to be honest, just do everything you do as best as you can and always turn up on time and always deliver what you say you're going to deliver. And that's why people like me as a puppeteer, because they could rely on me. When I said I was going to do something, I generally did it, except for that duck. I turned up with that duck as a kit of parts. But mostly I managed to get everything I said I would get done. So
yeah. Now before we wrap it up, how long did it take for you to make that duck?
Yeah, you see, the first time you do something, you don't know what you're making. I mean, to make another one now, I would know what I was doing, but duck didn't even exist. He was just an idea. So you're experimenting and you're trying to find out what would go well on a canal boat, what would look funny to children, what would, how the head will turn. There's so many things to think about when you're making something, that there's lots of experimentation. But I think it took me, a week or 2 weeks probably to make him. But then that's just to carve him. But then you have to make the mechanics work. He was a remote control duck. So, I mean, I didn't eventually do that bit, but I was trying to make him work with cables when I first built him. And just getting all those kinds of things to work takes another, many, many hours just to figure it out.
Wow. A remote control duck.
Yeah.
That's a sentence I never thought I would hear.
Yeah, there's lots of weird things on TV. Everything's pretty weird.
Yeah. And you could be flicking channels and then turn on and you see remote control duck just whiz past your screen.
That's right. Yeah, it's pretty funny, all the different things you get.
Yeah, because TV in general's become weird. Like, you can now see people do a competition and try to keep a balloon in the air, a world championship balloon air hovering, keeping up. It's just
yeah,
bizarre.
it is completely mad.
Yeah, and now, what have you got coming up for people to get excited for? What's in the future?
Well, yeah, my wife Kimberly is an amazing artist, and so we're planning on combining her amazing art skills with my puppeteering skills and making some beautiful videos and some funny videos. And it might take a month or two to get them ready to show, but we're going to start our own, YouTube channel, and you'll be able to see some of those hopefully coming up in the next, well, certainly in the next 6 months anyway.
Wow. Well, I'll be looking forward to seeing that. And when his channel does appear and it all happened, then come and check the description once again, because I will hopefully update it if I remember. But knowing my brain, I probably won't remember. But fingers crossed, I will remember.
Excellent. Well, thank you, Tom. Very nice to meet you.
Well, thank you for doing this. And thank you guys for watching. Now, in the Who's Fair for interviews, can't say too much, but keep your eyes peeled for either the 21st on the 22nd of January. My Wi-Fi, it depends on my Wi-Fi, but there might be something special coming out then. Who knows? Keep an eye out on Tom Mason on the 31st or the 1st of February, depending on my Wi-Fi yet again, for something special. But we are back in the interview sphere. And if you like our sphere, well, I've shouted you out. There you go. So, thank you guys for watching and hope you enjoyed it. And if you've got any questions for me in the comments, I don't know why I said that, but hey ho. And remember, just remember, time on, time out. Bye.